Welcome everyone to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving straight into something that is absolutely make or break if you're trying to navigate, survive, and honestly, thrive in the modern tech landscape. We're looking at a massive, glaring bottleneck in the IT industry right now, and that's the widening gap between academic, theoretical knowledge and the actual concrete skills you need to break into the DevOps field. I mean, think about how insanely fast cloud-native technologies are evolving. We've reached a point where simply passing a multiple-choice cloud certification or, memorizing definitions, it's just no longer enough. Companies are setting a very firm, highly demanding benchmark for what they expect engineers to execute on day one, especially as we look toward the hiring landscape of 2026. So today, we're breaking down source material from FDX Academy. This material positions their curriculum as the direct, hands-on antidote to that traditional, theory-heavy DevOps training. We're going to explore exactly how they structure their training to bridge that gap between what you read in a textbook and what actually keeps a production server from crashing. If you're focused on efficient, practical, real-world learning, let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, the source material addresses a specific, agonizing frustration that we see all the time in the engineering community. If you're trying to get into DevOps and you are just totally exhausted by pure theory, this approach is tailored for that exact pain point. It really all comes down to a phenomenon widely known as tutorial hell. You probably know the feeling, right? You spend hours meticulously following along with a video instructor. You understand every single word they say, you feel incredibly confident, and then you open a blank terminal on your own machine and your mind just goes completely blank. That illusion of competence you get from watching someone else type commands is quite literally one of the biggest roadblocks to actual mastery. The material we're analyzing highlights that traditional methods fundamentally fail because they insulate you from the messy, complex reality of a true production environment. Focused learners don't want to just read about abstract architecture, they want to feel the friction of making things work. And more importantly, they need to understand how to fix things when they inevitably break.
So there's a stark contrast here between the trap of generic courses and the reality of an action-oriented workflow. Generic educational platforms have this tendency to just dump hours of theory on you. You get no real infrastructure set up, you execute no actual commands, and you operate in no real environment. You can literally finish a 50-hour mega course and still not possess the practical know-how to deploy a simple web application to the internet. Crazy, right? Well, the FDX Academy material advocates for flipping this model entirely on its head. Their philosophy dictates that every single concept must come paired with hands-on practice, utilizing real clusters and actual code. And the reason this distinction is so vital is that deploying an application is the ultimate litmus test of a DevOps engineer's true skill. Businesses don't pay engineers to understand the theoretical definition of a load balancer. They pay engineers to keep their applications online, secure, and scaling efficiently under pressure. This methodology is entirely about doing the actual work.
Let's break down how this methodology actually builds a true engineer. You aren't just sitting back passively consuming content, you are placed actively in the driver's seat. Step 1 involves setting up a real Kubernetes cluster. This is absolutely crucial because simulated or, watered-down sandbox environments just hide the actual pain points of deployment. They hide the real networking issues, the DNS misconfigurations, and the node failures that you actually learn the most from. Step 2 moves right into writing actual Terraform code yourself, engaging with infrastructure as code to provision and destroy resources dynamically. And then Step 3 takes all of that across the finish line by building a complete CI/CD pipeline that deploys straight to production. This sequence from the source material isn't just an academic exercise, it intentionally mimics the exact, step-by-step daily workflow of a senior engineer. You're engaging with the messy reality of systems engineering, which builds an incredible amount of practical trust and unshakable confidence in your own abilities.
The source material really zeroes in on what it terms the 2026 hiring stack. Now, this isn't just a random assortment of popular buzzwords. It's a highly deliberate, interconnected pipeline. Think of it as a complete ecosystem. A developer writes the code, you use Docker to containerize that application so it runs identically anywhere, you use Terraform to programmatically build the AWS infrastructure where it will live, you rely on Kubernetes to orchestrate and manage those containers at a massive scale, and finally, you utilize a CI/CD pipeline to automate the entire lifecycle from a code commit all the way to a live production update. The curriculum emphasizes that isolating these specific tools provides everything you need to confidently step into the job market. By focusing exclusively on how these modern tools synergize with one another, you aren't wasting time on outdated legacy systems. Instead, you're laser-focused on the exact lifecycle and toolchain required to get hired as a high-level DevOps engineer in the near future.
Of course, when you're building actual CI/CD pipelines and orchestrating real Kubernetes clusters, you're inevitably going to get stuck. Things will break. That is simply how real engineering works. But the curriculum highlights a major differentiator regarding how you overcome those roadblocks. Not a forum, not a chatbot, me. This means personal, one-to-one expert support is fully baked into the process. Anyone who has written infrastructure code knows the unique agony of spending 3 days waiting for a forum reply, only to find out your entire deployment failed because you missed a single space in a YAML configuration file. Seriously, we've all been there. When you hit a wall like that, relying on generic AI hallucinations or dead community threads just completely kills your momentum. Getting direct, one-to-one expert feedback is the fastest, most effective way to debug complex technical roadblocks, correct your mental models, and actually retain the knowledge you're building.
The material presents a really interesting entry point to validate this entire ecosystem. For an incredibly straightforward 99 rupees, you get access to a live demo class. The source positions this as a direct, highly practical way to test the waters before making any kind of major commitment. Instead of taking a massive leap of faith on a completely new educational program, this allows you to physically test drive the hands-on environment. It's a really smart, analytical approach to your own education. It gives you exactly one session to evaluate the teaching style, interact with the infrastructure, and know, without a shadow of a doubt, if this practical, action-oriented workflow matches how you personally learn best. It essentially completely removes the friction of deciding whether to pivot away from theory-based learning into something deeply practical.
So, the ultimate question the source material leaves us with is this. Are you ready to stop watching theory and start deploying real apps? Is today the day you trade the illusion of progress for the concrete, real-world skills that companies are desperately searching for right now? The evidence presented makes a highly compelling case that the future of DevOps, especially as we quickly approach 2026, belongs entirely to the engineers who can execute, build, and troubleshoot live systems, rather than those who can only theorize about them. Execution is what actually gets you hired. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredibly relevant explainer today. Keep learning, keep building,